The Late Morning Program with Nam Ras Podcast.
Hare Krishna, everyone. You're listening to the Nam Ras Podcast, the number one Hare Krishna podcast in the world. I'm so delighted to have Gopal Prabhu here on with me. Gopal Prabhu, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me, for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely.
All the way from North Carolina. It's pretty hot up here, isn't it?
It is. Shockingly, you go north by 500 plus miles and it's hotter up here than it is down there.
Yeah. So Prabhu, we talked about what you kind of want to talk about, and I love the idea of gratitude. Such a great topic. But before we get into that, give our listeners some context about you, your upbringing, and maybe a little bit how you got in contact with Krishna consciousness.
Sure. Okay. Well, I grew up in the Baltimore area, and I ended up going to college in Southern California. That's another story. But as I was going to college, I was listening to professors and socializing with other college students and not getting a taste for anything. You know how when someone is a freshman in college, gradually freshman, sophomore, they're supposed to figure out what their major is, what their career path in life was. And I tried different things and nothing gave me a taste. And I was looking for something a little deeper. As I was in college, I started working for a video dating service, which is something that no young people would understand these days because this is before the internet. So you went in
Video dating service.
Video dating service. I was a videographer and a salesman. So I would sell memberships to this video dating service, which is the precursor to internet dating, basically.
Oh, interesting.
So, of course, I met all of the prospective datees before any of the other members.
Yeah.
And one of them was a very nice, kind, and attractive young lady who we ended up becoming friends and ultimately living together a little later. And she was a lifelong vegan.
Oh.
And I think the first even vegetarian I had ever met, or at least the first admitted vegetarian I'd ever met. This was in the 80s, Yeah. So in the 80s, it's hard to imagine now because vegan and vegetarian, even when they're not, they always raise their hand. I'm vegan, I'm vegetarian. And
yes.
So many of the medias out there, they're sick of that, right?
Yes.
How do you know who's a vegan? Don't worry, they'll tell you. Yes. So it wasn't like that then. So there's the first one that had admitted that to me. And I was curious. I had a curious mind back in those days. Mm-hmm. And she recommended some books, one of which was Diet for a New America by John Robbins. And that led to other books. And one of those books had a bibliography in the back. That means a list of other books that it references. And in one of those books, the Bhagavad Gita was there. Not Bhagavad Gita as it is, just Bhagavad Gita. So I was a voracious reader back then. And I looked into many of those books on the bibliography, and I happened to find a Bhagavad Gita, and I was very fortunate to have found Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, the old blue Macmillan abridged version. By that time, I had actually quit college, and I had moved up to Santa Cruz, California, to start working with John Robbins' organization called EarthSave, which gets out education as to the environmental and social impact of killing and eating animals and animal agriculture. So when I was living up there, I was fortunate to have gotten the Bhagavad Gita, and that knocked out my last little taste even of altruism. I was like, okay, this is something I need to pursue. Mm-hmm. It's way better than just, mundane advocating for animals or advocating for causes. I should advocate, first of all, for myself and my relationship with the Supreme Lord, and for others, for their relationship with the Supreme Lord. So at that time, I had been bought a ticket by my grandmother to come back to Baltimore to visit. I brought the Bhagavad Gita with me, read it on the plane, and when I landed in Baltimore, the first thing I did after hugging my mother was search out the Hare Krishnas in Baltimore. And I failed. Again, this was before the internet. So I just went to different health food stores and Buddhist colonies, whatever I could find that I thought might be connected to Hare Krishnas, and nobody had any idea that there was any kind of Hare Krishna community in Baltimore at that time.
How did you connect Bhagavad Gita with Hare Krishna, though?
It was Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita.
Oh, right.
So in the purports, many times it says,
got
associate with those that chant Hare Krishna.
Yes, yes.
And so I didn't know to look for ISKCON. If I knew to look for ISKCON, I could have looked in the yellow pages under ISKCON, but
Yeah.
I had no idea of the name of the organization. In fact, that version of Bhagavad Gita was written before ISKCON was even incorporated.
Oh, right. This was no mention, really?
No mention at all. So, in fact, I think it was Macmillan and Sons. That was the contact, and that number was out of service at that time because this was an old book, at least 20 years old.
Yeah.
We think of 20 years now as like nothing because 20 years ago, the internet was still there. But 20 years previous to 1989 was like the dark ages. That's when people used stone tablets and, mallets to communicate anything. Completely different. So I failed in Baltimore. And so I sort of shrugged my shoulders and said, okay, I'll just chant Hare Krishna on my own and go about doing whatever other activities I can do that are altruistic or spiritual or whatever, sort of begrudgingly. And I got a ticket down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to investigate the Hippocrates Health Institute in West Palm Beach. And as I was flying down to Florida, Krishna's arrangement, I had a stopover at the Raleigh-Durham airport. And I had a friend of mine meet me there for lunch. He had also become vegetarian by my prodding. And on the way to the second plane, I heard a voice call out, "Hey, are you guys college students?" And it was my Vartma Pradarshika guru, Mother Tulsi. And she had a spot at the airport. In fact, that was not her regular spot. Her regular spot was in another terminal. But there was some construction that day, and so the arrangement was made for her to shift spots to right where we were passing by.
Wow.
So I thought this was strange that some stranger would just like call out to us like that.
Yeah.
So I went over and I saw that she had a display of different books, and one of them was the Bhagavad Gita. And I became really excited. I'm like, oh my God, I've been looking for you guys.
Well,
So
we hear that a lot when you do book distribution. Not a lot, but more often do you hear people say like, "Oh, I've been looking for this," or "I've been looking for you guys," or this book or whatever.
That's why we have to really increase our book distribution and any kind of public presence, because people are looking for us.
Yeah.
And we think about the needle in the haystack, that we have to find the needle in the haystack. But that needle's not really a needle. It's a heat-seeking missile. And if we're hot, it'll find us.
Yes. Great point.
So
So this Mother Tulsi had a display.
Mother Tulsi had a display. I went over. I said, I've been looking for you. So I read the Bhagavad Gita. What's the next book? So fortunately, she had a first volume of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. One of those distribution versions that's a little bit smaller, but not too small.
Yes.
And she said, well, this is the next book. You should read this. And I said, great. How much? She said, I'll give you a donation. I gave liberally because I was so excited. And she said, oh, thank you very much. Also, take this piece of candy. As she had one of her methods of distribution and preaching is that she has candies offered and packaged, so that they're not taken away by the police for hygiene and like that.
Right.
So she gave me that piece of candy, and she also had a small book, which was called Encounters. It is about the size of a Perfection of Yoga, or Path of Perfection, or all the small BBT books. That was written by my Guru Maharaj, Srila Krishna Goswami.
Oh, right.
And
Encounters.
Encounters,
I think I remember that.
Yeah, it's out of print now, unfortunately, but it is still available digitally.
Okay.
So maybe we can put in the comments
For sure. Yeah.
the link to it. But it's a conversation between him and some Benedictine monks at a monastery. Mm-hmm. So I took that down to Florida with me, along with the Srimad Bhagavatam. And of course, I'm down in Florida, and I'm staying at a youth hostel. And it was very easy to just read this small book in an hour. And I read it, and I just gobbled it up. It was amazing. And also, fortunately, in the back of the book, there was a map on how to get to the temple in Hillsborough, North Carolina, at New Galoka. So I went to see Hippocrates Health Institute because I had already called them and told them, but I was bored. It didn't impress me at all. I was offered an internship there, but I said, thanks, I'll let you know. And then I never called back. I went back to the youth hostel, and I called the temple. And no one answered.
Surprise.
So, so I thought, okay, I'm sure that they're there, but this was not, also no cell phones at that time.
Yeah.
Right. So I thought, okay, I've got a friend, the same friend who met me at the airport before. I'll just go back with my return ticket, and I'll stay with him in the dorm, and we'll go out there and just crash the place. Mm-hmm. So I went, and I stayed with my friend David Meese. He was going to Duke University at the time. Stayed in his dorm. I called that night after I got in. I called the temple one more time to see if I could get a hold of somebody. And lo and behold, my own spiritual master, future spiritual master, answered the phone.
Really?
Which he never does. Never did then, doesn't now.
Wow.
Rare.
Something just inspired him from within.
Yeah. And so he answered the phone, and I said, well, I read this book, Encounters. I was really impressed, and I'd really like to meet this person, Bir Krishna Swami. And he said, well, actually, you're talking to him. And I was floored. Nice. I said, wow, that's great. I really appreciated your book, and the questions you asked and the answers that you gave to the questions that were asked of you were just simply amazing. And I can't wait to meet you, and I'd really like to stay at the temple or nearby and just learn everything I can from you. Mm-hmm. He said, well, have you heard the Hare Krishna Mahamantra? You may remember years ago, George Harrison would use it on the song, My Sweet Lord. I said, I'm not sure. He said, well, here it is. And he gave me the Hare Krishna Mahamantra on the phone. The night before I went to New Galoka. And then the next morning I showed up at 9 o'clock with a bag of clothes and my cat in a box. Mm-hmm. He was in a little carry box. And I had seen pictures in the back of Encounters on what the temple looked like. It was a forest. So I thought, he's an outside cat. I'll just let him roam. And even if I don't get to stay, he's a wild animal. He'll enjoy it there. Later on, my spiritual master told me that my cat brought me. I didn't bring him.
Wow.
So I have to offer my humblest obeisances to dear Bhakta Tom, my cat, who is another Vartma Pradarshika guru.
Amazing.
Yeah. So then my Guru Maharaj met me there. Actually, that's another thing. When I got there in the morning, he just happened to be right in the front area. And greeted me, and we talked, and he said, well, we have this room, you can stay in this room, and you want to cut vegetables? And I said, sure, I'm a vegetarian, so, cutting vegetables, one of my favorite things. Of course, that got old really fast because I'm lazy. But, I had some leftover enthusiasm for meeting the author who had been my hero.
Sure.
And then when I found out he was the direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who is the original hero from the Bhagavad Gita as it is that I read, I was even more inspired. And by Krishna's grace, 10 months later, I was blessed to take initiation and get the name Gopal Das. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Amazing. So it's like, is it coincidence or is it Krishna or... I mean, it is Krishna for sure, but when you hear these stories, it's like there's so many stories like this, but a normal person would probably not hear this many coincidental stories like as a devotee would, right?
Yeah.
Like a devotee coming to Krishna consciousness. It's just so interesting.
The more I hear these stories, I mean, even my own, even when I hear myself telling this story, I'm still amazed at how Christian just put everything together. But when I hear all these stories every time from so many devotees, it just convinces me more and more. I mean, sometimes I would just want to be in Maya. I don't want to think about Krishna. I want to just be a gross materialist and enjoy and be comfortable, but I just can't anymore. You know, I just look at the way the world is. I look at reality and I just go, that's just leftover fan turning. It's just stupid stuff, you know?
Yeah.
After a while, you just become so convinced. And that's the thing, too. Srila Prabhupada really wanted us to convince people, not because Krishna consciousness is necessarily very heady or an intellectual exercise, but being convinced like that actually also turns your heart. The brain and the heart are connected.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we hear in different systems that, oh, don't be so much in your head, be in your heart.
Yeah.
But actually, they are connected. And one will lead to the other. If you have sentiment, it should inspire you to learn. And if you learn, then if you have real intelligence, you apply that learning to your life. So that's been my path.
When you say convince, you said convince, right?
Yes.
What is it? What's like if you speak to someone who's new to Krishna consciousness?
Yes.
What do you kind of focus on to convince someone of that this is something worth pursuing?
That's a great question. And I'm glad you brought it up because I think it's really important for people who are preaching to understand why Lord Brahma, the Acharya of our line, has given us 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Yeah, right.
Double.
Yeah.
Right? So the thing is, I don't say the same thing to everyone.
Yeah.
First of all, I have to hear where they're coming from. I'm not interested in bringing someone into the temple, into the community, into the Krishna conscious family in the wrong room. Prabhupada built a house in which we can all live, but it's not a studio apartment, you know?
I love that. Yeah.
So, you know, when people come in, if you listen to them, then they may be a Sankirtan devotee. They may be a kirtaneer. They may be a cook, pujari. They may be a politician like Tulsi Gabbard,
Right.
who can do so much good in the world.
Yeah.
You know, so many things. I mean, he's likely not going to be a butcher or a tobacco grower.
Right.
But there's just so many avenues from which one can approach Krishna. And how am I going to know what that avenue is if I don't hear from them individually? And we're personalists.
Yeah.
It's a novel idea, but it's true that everyone is an individual person with their own path. And I feel like it's my job, my duty to hear from them before I tell them what is good for them.
That would take time though, right? Because when we think of outreach and preaching, we're like quantity more than quality. But what you're saying, it requires you to sit down and like take some valuable, time to, and a good amount of time to hear where someone's at, what they're going through. And then based upon that kind of talk to them, right?
Yeah. I mean, in 1972, what did Srila Prabhupada say about boiling the milk?
Yeah, boiling the milk, yeah.
So if we're not really willing to invest our time and our energy into really reaching someone on a personal connection level, then what do we expect to get out of it? I mean, even investing in the stock market or, any sort of venture, you can put in $5. Of course, that's gambling. We don't do that, but you understand the principle.
Yes.
You put in, you get what you get out what you put in.
Yeah.
So if you want I can tell you from my perspective, my spiritual master invested enormous amounts of time, energy, and heartache into trying to purify me. I did not come as anything close to a pure devotee. And the more I learn about Krishna consciousness and the more I practice Krishna consciousness, the more I realize how far I have to go. But that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to realize it, and it's not a bad thing to be in that position also, because it just gives more to look forward to. A lot of people I've noticed, they consider humility, and sometimes I fall into this too. We all do. That, it's self-denigration. I'm so low, I'm so fallen, I'll never get there or whatever. But humility means seeing how low you are, but that comes with excitement about how far you can go.
Yeah.
Like you go to an amusement park, right? And maybe you've never been there before. And you're like, oh, I have no idea what's going on here. I have to learn. But it's exciting because there's just so many rides.
Yeah.
There's so many new things to learn. And Krishna consciousness is ever fresh. It's always something new. So it's an exciting, being humble is an exciting position, or realizing one's true humility. Humility is a funny nut to figure out, I always thought it was something that I had to work on getting artificially, or something I could buy at Walmart on sale if I could get it. But humility is not like that. Krishna consciousness is something beg, borrow, or steal.
Yeah.
But humility, it should come from a realization of reality.
Totally.
The fact is, Krishna is the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead who encapsulates everything, who is everything, and yet separate also. Can't understand it at all with our material brains. But by his mercy, he's revealing certain things, right?
Yeah.
So we're so anu, so tiny. But that's just exciting. It's like being in a king size bed alone with all the big blankets. You just get to snuggle in. I'm revealing my mode of ignorance here. But that's, in my experience, that is a humility that actually leads to more Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
Because you're taking shelter of Krishna.
Yeah, there's something freeing about accepting your insignificance.
Yeah.
Like I saw someone's shirt and it was like the Milky Way and it was like, you are here. and it was like, you're in the Milky Way and it's like, your problems may be so huge, to you might be so big and things, but when it boils down to it, it's like,
we have no problems.
No, we really don't.
I was reading one lecture Srila Prabhupada gave, and that was the title, You Have No Problems.
Really?
Yeah, it was awesome. I should look it up and read it here, but
yeah,
y'all can look it up online. It's brilliant.
What was the gist?
The gist was that basically the same thing. We're just so small. Whatever we think is an issue, it's not even a blip in history.
Yeah.
What to speak of to others? It's not even a blip in history to us. We think it's a problem. It's only a problem for the temporary body. Even the subtle body, although it lasts a few more gross bodies, it's still temporary.
Yeah.
It's changeable. So the subtle body that you had 100 lifetimes ago is definitely unrecognizable from the subtle body you have after 100 lifetimes of more samskaras. Right? So, all these things that we're applying to a temporary thing, it's just like, it's so silly. It's like if you're eating an apple, you drop an apple, it gets a little bruise on it, and you don't eat the apple because it's got a tiny little bruise on it from falling. Silliness.
I saw some reel that said, for just 2 or 3 generations from now, no one will know like your name,
right,
your house that you lived in and worked so hard to buy. Someone else will be living there. All the mememories that
if it's even still standing.
If it's still standing, yeah. The memories will be gone from when you lived there and things. And it was interesting to see the comments, people saying like, oh, it's negative and things. But some people also saying like, it should be, even like secular people understand and kind of realize that it's a freeing notion to think like that.
Very freeing. Not only, I mean, you can think of it like this. You know, you said you're going to be 39 soon, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember what you were lamenting when you were 25?
Not really, no.
And that's in the same lifetime.
Yeah.
Even adulthood.
It's
the same lifetime, even the same phase of your life.
Yeah.
And you don't remember.
Yes.
So why are we lamenting over things? And in fact, Prabhupada said that that's the definition of Shudra.
One who laments.
One who laments
the past.
unnecessarily.
Wow.
I love that qualifying word unnecessarily because there are things legitimately to lament.
Totally, yeah.
And what are those? Missed opportunities to connect with Krishna and Krishna's devotees.
Yeah.
Those are lamentable. But transcendental lamentation is something completely different because it leads to motivation not to miss those opportunities again in the future. Like, I have one story if you indulge me.
Please.
I was living in Los Angeles in the year 2000. I was pursuing an acting career. I had been in the movement for 9 years, but I didn't have any real career that inspired me. So I went out to Los Angeles and joined an acting troupe and was doing auditions and joined the union. But if you recall, the year 2000 was the year that His Grace George Harrison was on his way out.
Oh, yes, that's right.
And I had basically just gotten to Los Angeles. I think he left in 2001. So I had not been there long. And I was going to the temple regularly to Govinda's restaurant to take prasadam. And I was friends with some of the devotees there. One who unfortunately has left us since then, Sura Prabhu.
Oh, yeah, I
His
love
Grace
Sura Prabhu.
Yeah.
I played mridanga for him for his
band.
For his band whenever he would come to New York.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Great memories.
Yes.
So I was there and he saw me. He says, "Hey, we're going to George's place to chant for him. He's not feeling well. You want to come?" Well, I had 2 auditions that day and a scene study that I had to do. So I said, "I would love to, Prabhu, but I'll have to go next week. I can't go today." There wasn't any next week for Shriman George.
Wow.
So that was a big missed opportunity.
Right.
I have other stories like that that might make me cry. So that's the last one I'm going to tell.
Oh my goodness. Tell us more about the acting thing. Like, how did that turn out? And
Well, it's funny. I said that I wasn't getting a taste from anything in college, but that was one of the reasons I went to college in the first place was for drama. So that was I didn't make it an official major, but that was my leaning. So I was taking courses in drama and ushering and all these things. And I was in Southern California, so those were offered at United States International University. This is not a plug because they don't exist anymore. They went out of business because I didn't pay my tuition, so they went under. But I had always been interested in performance.
yeah.
And then I got waylaid with joining the Hare Krishna movement and becoming a brahmachari and doing books and cutting vegetables and all the things that I did.
Yeah.
And I had also gotten married in 1996, and I worked a job in retail, which, paid some bills, but wasn't giving me much of a taste,
Sure.
So I went back to my roots and I thought I should try, the performance thing again. And I came out to Los Angeles. My father was actually living in Pasadena at the time. He had escaped Baltimore and moved out to Pasadena. So I went out to see him. He offered for me to stay there for some time. Not permanently, he made that clear. And so I stayed there and I looked for a place and I saw how expensive it was in Los Angeles. So I tried whatever I could to figure out how to live there on my own. And so I took a course to become a property manager.
Okay.
So I got my certificate of property management and I applied to a bunch of different jobs. And I got very lucky. I ended up managing a building that was walking distance from New Dwarka.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I got a free apartment from that. I also made a considerable amount of money because the owner had a plan to get out all the old tenants who were drug addicts and other people that he didn't want there anymore. And then once the building was empty, to raise the rent considerably.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I would get a commission on that. So I had a free apartment, was making commission, and at the same time pursuing the craft of acting. Meanwhile, while I was doing all the property management stuff, I was going twice a week to acting class, and that was at the Beverly Hills Playhouse, which has two sections. One is far away at the Skylight Theater, and the other one is closer to the Temple in Beverly Hills. So we started out at the Skylight, which was beginning acting, and I made plenty of contacts, learned many, many things, how to express myself, how to reach an audience. And then when I got to the intermediate level and I was actually taking class and working at the Beverly Hills Playhouse, then I made lots of contacts with people like Jenna Elfman, who else? Larry Miller, Larry Thomas, who, did you ever watch Seinfeld
Yeah.
when you were younger?
Yeah.
You know, the soup Nazi?
Yeah.
His name is Larry Thomas.
Oh, you
He's
knew
a friend
him.
of mine, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So we still stay in touch from time to time.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So while I was doing all of that, and I was also going on auditions, sometimes I would get a part. One of my big breaks was I did a movie with Matthew McConaughey, Kate Beckinsale, Patricia Arquette, Gary Oldman, Peter Dinklage, called Tiptoes. I was Kate Beckinsale's doctor. She was pregnant and giving birth. So
Oh, that's cool.
that was a great opportunity, a great experience. I'm really glad I did it, and I'm really glad it's over.
Really?
It's a terrific chapter in my life. It taught me a lot. My original goal to sort of merge the Krishna consciousness with my lifelong dream of performing was to get so influential that I would launch a high budget, a high production value Mahabharat, a series of movies like
Right.
Star Wars,
Yeah.
at least 9.
Yes.
I had the whole idea in my head. I still think about it from time to time, especially with the release of the audiobook that Hridayananda Maharaj just put out. Have you listened to it?
I have not. No.
You're missing it, man.
I should
It's
listen.
awesome.
Really?
Yeah, but
It's an audiobook?
yes,
And who narrates it?
he does.
Oh, wow.
It's brilliant.
wow.
So, and everyone that I've referred to get it,
Yeah.
they got it, and they're like, "Oh my god, it ended on a cliffhanger. When is he going to do part 2? When's he going to do part 2?"
How long is it?
It's 10 hours.
Okay.
But it's only up to Satyavati marrying Shantanu and moving
Oh,
to
that's like the
Hastinapur.
beginning.
Barely,
Wow.
barely even the beginning.
Amazing.
So it could easily go into 9 parts
Super
or
cool.
many more.
I was always waiting for someone to do a Mahabharata movie.
Yeah.
Still
yeah. Well,
waiting.
at that time, I was young and energetic. I didn't want to wait. I just wanted to do it myself.
Yeah.
So, but what I realized when I got about 10% there, maybe 5%, I realized by the time I get to 20 or 30%, my soul will be gone. Because that's why I say I'm glad it's over, is that Hollywood, it is a very tough nut to crack. And they demand all sorts of things. I wrote a script and a treatment for a television series that was actually quite brilliant and was pitched to Universal Studios with Larry Thomas. He and I together, the Soup Nazi and I, went and had a pitch meeting at Universal Studios to get a show that I wrote and developed made. But it never happened because the agent that picked it up and killed it. And
What
That
they
was
didn't
the
want
end.
it to be.
I have no idea why.
But it was
I
their-
had some ideas. I didn't want it to contain anything grossly sinful,
Yeah.
like, meat eating, prostitution, and all
Drugs
these
and
things
things,
that
yeah.
we see everywhere. In all, I had this idea that we can bring more respectability and nobility to the craft of acting. Well, all the people that are actors and are in the craft have other ideas.
Yeah.
So that's what I realized after that I'm not going to be able to do this without just selling my soul. So I'm really glad I learned what I learned. I'm really glad I made the money I made. I'm really glad that I made the contacts that I made. And I'm just really glad I don't have to continue to slag at it, because at this age, I don't think I'd have the energy anyway.
Right. Do you think it's important for devotees to find joy in their career, so to say, or is it just a means to an end? In my case, to support my family, or because some people say that you should find a lot of joy. You should, if you do what you love, you're never working a day in your life. You know that saying?
Yes.
But for me, I don't know. It just doesn't seem viable for 99.9% of people. Like it allows me to do the things that I want to do, that my career.
Yeah. But even at your career, I mean, where you work, you meet people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those are other Jiva souls. You can connect with them. It doesn't mean telling them to chant Hare Krishna or even preaching to them. But just one-on-one, one thing I have learned over the years is that just one-on-one connection with other Jiva souls is a very, very valuable commodity. Much more valuable than we realize. Even when that connection is painful, sometimes that's more valuable.
Painful, and like, why would it be painful?
Well, because
awkward or something?
Yeah, awkward, or they heard a rumor about you, and so they,
right?
They avoid you or spread the rumor, or they're jealous of you because of your position at work.
Yeah.
Or they just didn't grow up with the kind of character that you would like to associate yourself with.
Yeah.
So connecting with those people sometimes can be even more valuable because it can lead to gratitude. How's that for a segue?
Love it.
So when you see how people are suffering and you see, the thing is, when we meet people we don't like, you only have to deal with them for a few minutes or maybe a few hours. They have to deal with them 24/7. So when you meet someone, you're like, oh man, why do I have to be with this person? Just imagine how bad it is for them.
Do they always know, though?
Doesn't matter. Do people know when they're suffering?
Right.
Does the pig know when he's suffering?
All right.
I mean, we see really famous people that, have tons of money. I mean, Robin Williams is a great example.
Yeah.
He had everything in front of him, but he ended up ending his own life. And at that point, he'd actually conquered most of his demons. He'd overcome addiction. He went to amazing heights, both upwardly and laterally in his career, so many times, over and over and over again. He had a loving family. He had great friendships, many, many things.
Yeah.
But he even did a movie that was semi-Krishna conscious. There was a movie called When Dreams Come, Where Dreams Come, something like that.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, so he had so many things, but he still had to live with those demons even though he had conquered them. So that's the problem with demons. You conquer them, but they don't necessarily leave you. They live in your dungeon. So when you meet someone who is a challenge to spend time with them, I've been able to parlay that into gratitude, that I may not like spending time with them, but I get to not have to spend time with them pretty soon. They don't have that privilege. Maybe they will get that privilege eventually, because it'll get to the point where they'll have to change. And so we pray for them. We pray that, please show this person how their choices are creating suffering, not only for those around them, but more so even for them.
Yeah.
I notice whenever I'm suffering or lamenting unnecessarily, I'm doing it to myself. It's not the external thing that's actually causing my suffering. An external thing may be connected to it or indicative of it, but the suffering's coming from me.
Yeah.
I have stubbed my toe and cursed the table and gotten really upset, bent out of shape, broken things. And I've also stubbed my toe and laughed about it. The pain was the same, but the experience of laughter was far more enlivening than the cursing.
So you're saying how you react to any given situation.
Yeah. And Prabhupada said, our first duty, you know what our first duty as a aspiring devotee?
What's that?
To be happy. Srila Prabhupada said that's our first duty. So how can we be happy if we're not grateful for what we have?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, the anticipation of getting something in the future, we think of that as happiness, but that's happiness in the mode of passion because it's like nectar in the beginning, but it's poison in the end. And it truly is, because every material thing that you can desire, I promise it will disappoint you.
Yeah. For sure. I love that. For our first duty is to be happy. What kept you grateful throughout all these years? Because we can see that a lot of the times devotees, as they get older, not everybody, but you can get more
Jaded.
grouchy.
Absolutely.
So for how long it's been for you when you first started Krishna consciousness, what has it been? 30 something, I guess?
33 and a half years.
33 and a half years. You still seem very enthusiastic about Krishna consciousness. What keeps you enthusiastic?
That's a great question. Nothing keeps me enthusiastic because enthusiasm and gratitude is not a straight line. It's a zigzag. Sometimes I'm grateful, sometimes I'm not. So it's practice. You know, by Krishna's mercy, I still have a little energy left, and I use that to play tennis. So if a few years ago I was playing and I broke my wrist and I didn't play for 6 months, and when I got back, I was terrible. I couldn't hit the ball. I was framing everything. It was awful. But gradually, as I played more, I recalled my skills and I got better. Gratitude is just like that. It's a practice. So the more you practice it, the more it feeds itself. There's so many, mundane things that are indicative of spiritual things. We look at that, no, that's mundane, that's material. That's just not reality. Reality is, even if it is mundane, even if it is material, the only material thing is our consciousness that this doesn't belong to Krishna.
Right.
As long as we see it connected to Krishna, it's not material anymore. So this practice that we do for sports, for music, for public speaking, for coding, if you're an IT coder, whatever it may be, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and the more it feeds into joy to continue to do it. So just practice. And also, gratitude, we talk about the attitude of gratitude, right? You've seen that, the attitude of gratitude?
Totally, yeah.
It's fantastic. We absolutely do need to cultivate that attitude of gratitude. But when you have an attitude towards something, you have to practice it. So where's the gratitude in action? So the turbocharge to gratitude is practicing it. And we see that all throughout Srila Prabhupada's books. If someone has given something to you or someone has something that is valuable to you, you serve them.
Yes.
Right? So if you're grateful to Krishna, go to his temple and be seen by him. And see the devotees. Ask them if there's anything that you can do according to your capacity. Some people, they may have some physical disability that they can't dance, jump up and down in kirtan, or they may struggle with emotional issues. I mean, depression is actually a real thing.
Yeah.
It's not just, just change your attitude. It's not that easy. People have clinical and chemical depression. So, but that doesn't mean they can't be engaged. But also, remember that great story that His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj tells about when Srila Prabhupada was leaving this world. He called His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj into his room, and he asked, how will this go on in my absence? We all know the story, right? And he said it takes great intelligence. It's that pat answer of just chant your rounds and follow the Four Noble Principles. Yes, that has to be there. That's the basics.
Yeah.
but you can't live in a house that doesn't have drywall. The foundation is great. It's necessary. The drywall won't hold if it's not there. But without the drywall, you can't live in the house either. So it takes great intelligence to figure out, what is appropriate in this situation, which is another reason why 2 ears, 1 mouth. We have to really listen and hear what is necessary.
Yeah.
To apply action to it. Mm-hmm. If you apply action, also, Srila Prabhupada often uses the example of water and milk. If the spiritual master asks for water and you bring milk, thinking that that's better, but that's not what was asked. Or if the spiritual master says, I'm thirsty, and you bring 7-Up, because at one point in time, Srila Prabhupada likes 7-Up, and therefore it's always 7-Up, right?
Right, yeah.
But maybe you should ask, oh, thank you for telling me you're thirsty, Srila Prabhupada. What would you like me to bring you? And then he'll tell you, water, milk, 7-Up, gin and tonic. Well, probably not that. But, we ask. We make ourselves available. And best not to guess.
Yeah.
Guesses are good, but ask for confirmation. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, for sure. You also, earlier we were talking about trauma also. And trauma's a big term these days.
It is.
And you said you had gone through some trauma in your own life growing up and things.
No, I've actually never been through any trauma at all. But other people who may have gone through some of the things that I've gone through may consider it trauma. I don't consider it trauma.
Really?
I consider that they have been opportunities to lead me to where I am today. I'm in my 50s. When I first came to Krishna consciousness, I was 20. Before I was in Krishna consciousness, I was a teen with so many dreams. You all right?
Yeah. My mom always does a chance around this time.
Oh, I'm usually very sensitive to that, but for some reason it's not getting me.
I did a few other podcasts, and the guests they're like someone doing a chance, and it's like her doing a chance.
My wife does that too. It drives me nuts, but somehow it's not getting me today.
It's getting me for some reason. But yeah, man. Anyways, yeah.
So, I had so many dreams from the time that I was a kid. When I was 8, 9, 10 years old, my heroes were rock stars. I wanted to be a rock star. When I got a little older, I wanted to be an actor. When I was a college student, I wanted to look into altruism. When I joined the Krishna consciousness movement, I wanted to save the world.
Yeah.
And so many things. So if I had gotten what I wanted at each and every stage, I would be miserable.
Yeah.
I would have so much pressure. I would have so much anxiety. Krishna had a better plan for me. And everything that I've been through, completely opposite of what I thought that I wanted, has led me to today. And I guarantee it's not at all possible for anything that I had planned to make me happier than I am today. Now, if I had made better choices in regards to what Krishna wanted for me, maybe I'd be happier. But I have to go at my own pace.
Yeah.
And just self-castigation and, hair shirts and whips, not going to help anything. So what trauma? I don't see trauma. Now, that's not to discount traumas that people have. I mean, the stories I hear are just horrific. People go through things, what to speak of in ISKCON, all over. By Krishna's grace, I have the opportunity to interact with a lot of people in a lot of different walks of life. And I wish I could say that ISKCON had a monopoly on trauma, and that outside of ISKCON, there's no bad things that happen to people.
Yeah.
It's just not true. And that is what Srila Prabhupada told us. And all the evidence has been mounting and mounting and mounting year after year as I've looked. This world is just no place for a lady or a gentleman.
Yeah.
However, according to Ishopanishad, it's perfect.
Complete.
It's complete. What's the dichotomy here?
Yeah.
But it's not a dichotomy, because if it were perfect, we'd want to linger here And our real happiness, our real positive happiness, not just freedom from stress and freedom from trauma, but our real positive happiness is elsewhere. So we talk about Krishna taking us back to Godhead, but really he's chasing us back to Godhead. You know, all of these traumas, all of these instances that are, you know, leave very harmful samskaras, we have the opportunity to choose to use them as a springboard to get back to Godhead. That's our choice. We do have that freedom. Now, unfortunately, there are especially certain formative traumas that do happen to children that difficult to speak about, especially since I don't have children. And also, shout out to both my parents and their support family that I was very cared for, loved, protected, and I didn't go through anything of what I hear of. Practically speaking, seems like most people that I meet have some sort of childhood emotional deformity.
It's interesting you say that because it's very covered, or that people don't really put it out in the open unless you speak to them. Like in America, everything is so, in the West, everything is so like neat and tidy, and everyone's prim and proper.
Not as much as it used to be.
Right.
It's becoming more and more popular for people to talk about their traumas.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if in every case it's going in the right direction. You know, sometimes you dwell on something, it just makes it worse.
Yes. Or like people aren't dealing with it in the correct way.
Yeah. There's healthy methods of coping, and then there's unhealthy methods.
Yeah.
So, of course, ideally, we just don't give children those things to have to cope with. The thing is, here I am in my 50s, and I didn't have to cope with that, and I'm very happy.
Yeah.
And I say I had no traumas, but honestly, if you put me in a time machine, there's certain things I'd change you know, and going back in time. So it's not that, oh, you know, you'll learn from this. It'll help make you stronger. I remember hearing that in my generation, that, you know, just tough it out.
Yeah, pain is weakness leaving the body or something like that.
Yeah, pain, no pain, no gain, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That can only go so far.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's certain pain that actually breaks you, and there's a level of pain that can kill you.
Yeah.
So it is a very, very important duty. You know this because you have 3 of your own. Parenthood, I mean, I consider it heroic if you can have a child, raise this child all the way up to 18 without the child being killed, or without losing your own patience so that you kill the child yourself. I mean, I've seen parents dealing with difficult children. It's like, how do they find that patience?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
You
my
know?
gosh. Yeah.
It's heroic,
Yes.
but it's also a huge responsibility. I grew up with superheroes. Everyone knows that's my big anarta, the one that I just can't let go. But I'm trying to dovetail it and remembering the lessons that come in some of these stories. And one of the big lessons is, with great power must come great responsibility.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the verbatim is must come with great responsibility. It's not optional. So having the duty of taking care of another living entity, what to speak of a child, even if you have a pet or a plant, that living entity is depending upon you for its survival. And, you know, life is a team sport. So if you don't meet your responsibilities for that other living entity, there are living entities that you're depending on that you don't even realize. Government workers, your banker, you know, whoever it may be. And those reactions will get you, whether it's karma or even if it's directly Krishna. And Krishna wants us to learn those lessons and become better, become actually better. Many times we've heard over the years, Kripa City, right?
Kripa Siddhi.
Just get like sudden mercy to just go right back to Godhead.
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful thought. But I think it's more heroic and more wonderful that, you get sadhana city, where you really apply yourself and you're really showing Krishna, I really want you.
Yeah.
It seems to me a little bit unfair. Life is unfair. But you know who it's most unfair to?
Who?
Krishna. He's giving us everything. Everything.
Yeah.
And we can't even give this one little insignificant lifetime to him? How is that fair? It doesn't seem fair to me. So it's true. Life is not fair. If you say life is not fair, you're absolutely correct. But the most unfair thing is Krishna is giving you air. Krishna is giving you water. Krishna is giving you food. Krishna is giving you especially here in the West. Come on. Krishna is giving you so many opportunities to be happy, to choose happiness, to choose gratitude, both attitude and action.
Mm-hmm.
And, who's doing it? Even if you say that everyone within ISKCON is doing it, what is the cross-section of human society that is within the International Society of Devotees? It's not so many percentage-wise.
Yeah, 0.0000.
Well, it's maybe a little bit more than that now.
Okay.
With the growth in India and Europe.
Right.
By Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we have really touched a lot of lives.
For sure.
Well, what to speak of, directly having people that chant Hare Krishna and perform devotional service. But look at all of the amazing effect that Srila Prabhupada's enthusiasm to bring Krishna conscious principles to the world has had even in the mundane world. Kirtan is now almost as common an English word as yoga and karma.
Yeah.
Imagine.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. And the buzzword in the food industry now is what? Plant-based.
Plant-based, yeah.
It's, it's in like a pin out like a plow, but everything is plant-based,
Yeah.
Plant-based plants. Everything's plant-based. This banana is plant-based. So, this comes from Prabhupada. Without Srila Prabhupada coming and saying things to us, like what kind of sinful society is this where a cow gives us milk and then we slit her throat?
Yeah.
And people take that, especially young people. They think. When you're young, you still have the ability to think. So that makes sense. Maybe not such a great idea. And even we're seeing in this generation, children are respecting their parents more. Children are giving up screens and, choosing to go outside, not in this heat, but,
Yeah.
play outside and interact more personally with their friends. All these things are due to Srila Prabhupada bringing us the true philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Personalism, care for living entities, care for ourselves, and connection with something higher than us. Someone higher than us. They may not chant Hare Krishna in this lifetime, but I guarantee it's coming. Lord Chaitanya came to save everyone. What's that saying, that verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where he liberated the entire world. So if he liberated the entire world, how is it still going on? Why is the material world still here? Right? Because people still have to sort of cycle in and out, but by his mercy, by manifesting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, everyone is getting out. We don't see it with our mundane eyes. It may take a couple of lifetimes or hundreds of lifetimes. But what is that? It was Mukunda.
Mukunda, yeah.
The great singer. He was forbidden to see Lord Chaitanya. And he said, just ask him when. He said, after millions of lifetimes. And he was thrilled.
He was thrilled.
Because at least he knows it's coming sometime in the future. Prabhupada said, all of my disciples are pure devotees. So here it is, 40 some odd years later, and we've seen some behaviors that have not really fallen under the category of pure devotional behavior. Yes?
Yes.
We can be honest about that. Doesn't mean that those people that engage in those behaviors aren't pure devotees. But just like Srila Prabhupada talked about his movement, that I have millions of temples, there's only time separating us.
Right.
So there's only time separating that person who you think is a big demon because they're ambitious or they're abusive or they're whatever. There's only time. Even if it's a lifetime, 5 lifetimes, 700 lifetimes, 7 million lifetimes, the poison has entered. Now it must act. Srila Prabhupada has given them the Maha Mantra that he got from his spiritual master, who got from Lord Nityananda, who got from Lord Chaitanya. It's coming directly from Goloka Vrindavan. Once you get that, you're finished. You know, Rupa Goswami warned us, don't go to the banks of the Yamuna and hear the name Govinda, because all hopes for enjoying material life long term, they're done at that point. I don't want to get too sentimental about it, but, you know, just taking everything together, that's the reality.
Yeah.
The reality is Lord Chaitanya did come to liberate everyone, even those of us who are lingering here 500 years later.
I think about that kind of middle ground where I am personally, where you know a lot about Krishna consciousness, but also you haven't really given up the attachment to material enjoyment.
Yeah.
And that middle ground's weird because sometimes you can be really excited about Krishna consciousness, but then you can also be discouraged in Krishna consciousness because you have all these material desires and, you know, all these material things that are in your, like the contaminations of materialism. So what would you say for that middle ground, how to either, because you actually can't go to the material side because you just know too much. Yeah. So you have to like double down on the spiritual, but at the same time,
Well, you don't have to. It's good if you do, but
it's good if you do.
Don't have to.
Please, why not?
Well, because Maya's strong.
Yeah.
You know, she's Krishna's sister. She's no amateur. Knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
So, doubling down on spiritual life, and that can also be a kind of Maya, because when we're conditioned, sometimes we think we're doubling down in spiritual life by, you know, going to an ecstatic kirtan, you know, and then pushing our way to the front so we can lead that ecstatic kirtan.
Right.
And then we get the sense gratification of being worshipped.
Yes.
By leading that ecstatic kirtan.
Totally.
So, you know, things come in subtly. And that's the thing. You can give up the gross sense gratification and still be attached subtly while thinking, oh, I've given up this attachment. It's hard. The thing is, giving up things is really not our process.
Yeah.
Our process is to depend on Krishna, to do our best to serve our spiritual master. We render service not out of our own speculation, but under the guidance of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So, if our spiritual master gives us some direction, or if he doesn't happen to be present right now, either on the planet or in a different temple or whatever it is, Srila Prabhupada is so kind that he gave us a huge family of very, very advanced souls.
Yeah.
What to speak of advanced souls? I mean, if you read the 11th canto, you know that Avaduta Brahman, he's taking instruction from a spider and a prostitute and a bird.
And a bee.
A snake, so many things.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we really want it, and that's the thing too, even if we just want it a little bit, Prabhupada said if we take one step towards Krishna, he'll take 10 steps towards us. They got any kind of deal like that at Best Buy or Walmart? I don't think so.
That's true.
So, I mean, just if you're like me, just, you know, a bargain hunting Jew, this is the best bargain in town.
Right.
So, you know.
Yeah, but you take 10, he takes 10 steps to you, but then you have to just like give your whole life. The price is your whole life.
Yeah.
It's a big price to pay. I
Is
think.
it though? Is it really? Because you've had how many millions of lifetimes up to now,
Yeah.
and you didn't pay those. And you actually still have all those scars. Are they making you happy?
No.
Are the material scars making you happy?
No.
So what are you going to gain by just getting more of them? You know, I've also noticed that as we get older, you know, when we're younger, we want to get things. We want to get the latest video game console. We want to get the nicest car. We want to get the biggest house. But you cross a certain point where you're more excited getting rid of a big bag of stuff. Like on my way up here, I stopped at the Historical Society of Baltimore County to drop off 2 big boxes and a bunch of drawings that belong to a friend of mine who also lives down in Hillsborough, near Hillsborough. And she's part of an influential aristocratic family from Baltimore County. So she was so grateful and so ecstatic that I took these things away from her and delivered them to someone else.
Yeah.
Of course, she's happy that they're going to get some use because she's also Krishna conscious and sees that it's Krishna's energy. She wants to see that it has some value to someone, but she's so ecstatic to let it go. As you get older, you love to let things go.
Yeah.
The thing is to internalize that and to be able to let things go in your heart. That's harder, and sometimes that takes more time. But again, like I said, our process is not letting things go. It's letting Krishna take them away. And he is Hari, right? So it's his job. And life is a team sport, again. So we participate, but we depend on Krishna. So if we have material attachments, if we have material desires, material activities that we're obligated to do, either by social obligation or by emotional obligation. Like I just have to watch the latest Star Wars series on Disney Plus. I have to know what happens with those characters. You know, you don't get any benefit from lamenting it. You know, you go about your duty. Tatenu kampam susamik shamana, you know this verse.
Yeah.
From the 10th canto, is that, you know, even so many reversals are there, but you just, and it's very interesting. Sometimes people say that it's mind, body, and heart, but it's actually not the verse. Tatenu kampam susamik shamana, punjani vame kritam vikam, hrid vag vapur vir. Vag meaning words, vapur meaning your body, and hrid, heart.
Yeah.
So if you throw your body at devotional service and your words at devotional service, and you invest your heart, especially under the direction of the spiritual master and the other Vaishnavas, then everything will go away on its own. Well, not on its own. Krishna will take it away for you.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you have Habitat for Humanity up here?
Yeah, kind of. We'd actually do in some city areas.
Yeah, but I mean, do you have like the stores, the Restore?
No.
So down.
We have like Goodwills and stuff.
Okay, so Goodwill.
Yeah.
Well, we're very lucky in North Carolina. We have Habitat Restores.
Oh.
And if you have an old sofa that you want to get rid of, they'll actually come get it for you.
Wow.
So Krishna's like that. You have an old Anarta,
It's like, I'll come get it.
he'll just come get it. You don't have to deliver it.
Yeah. You have to want to give it away, though.
Yeah, that's true. You got to make the call.
You gotta make the
The
call.
Restore is not going to come knocking on your door saying, you got any Anartas for us?
Yeah.
Krishna doesn't do that either because free will. But you make the call, and that's what our japa is. That's us calling out to Krishna.
Yeah.
You know, I've got this old Anarta, this old stinky moldy Anarta. And, you know, the Restore, when they pick up something old and stinky, they clean it. And they make use of it. Krishna can do that too. You may not know that your Anarta has some dovetailing capacity. That's what Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra are for. So if you consult with the Vaishnavas, you consult with your Guru, you read Srila Prabhupada's books, then you'll be able to determine, can this narta be used in Krishna service? And if it can't, Krishna will come take it away for you.
Gosh, whenever you make a good point, then the point that I was thinking that I was going to say or ask you, it was like leaves my mind.
Sorry. It might be the heat. It's so hot, just so that the viewers know, because this is not being aired for a little while.
Yeah.
But it's 107 degrees outside today.
Yes, it's very, very hot.
So it's baking our brains.
Yeah.
I've noticed that my brain fog has been like mucho.
I mean, you're very sharp right now, I would say.
Okay, thanks. Well, again, Krishna is in charge.
I remembered, yeah. You were saying a part of that verse is hrid and you're in your heart. I would say that for me, it's like really difficult to always put my heart into devotional activities when, if you've been doing them for a long time, it can just be very mechanical.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
What advice would you give?
Change it up.
Change it up.
Change it up. If you've been a kirtaneer for a long time and it's just like rote for you now that
Yeah.
you just go and do the same kirtan and
Yeah.
you get the same taste and you're like, yeah, this is tasty, but I've tasted it so many times. Go do books.
Right.
Go in the kitchen and cook. Clean toilets.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how enlivening it is to take Krishna's trash. You know, I had an experience just last week or perhaps the week before. We have a recycling program at our temple, and we have a lot of boxes and so many things, as most temples do, because we're a kitchen religion. So there were so many boxes, and the way our system is set up, the boxes just get thrown over a fence so that no one can see them. And then that whole area is just like a disaster. Yeah. And that's the area that I have to back my car up to unload boga that I buy for the temple, because that's one of my services.
Yeah.
And that was my service, is to take care of the recycling. After one of my godbrothers left the temple, then I took up that service. And I assigned that to someone else when someone else came, but I didn't really train them. I just said, you do this now. So when I was driving up and I saw the boxes were in the way of me, I got upset. I was like, man, who has done this? Why have all these boxes here? And then, you know, as I was backing up, I was looking in the rearview mirror. I said, oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
That's the guy that did this. So that's the guy that should fix it. So I parked my car and I got out and I started folding Krishna's boxes and putting them in the cans. Lo and behold, about 30 minutes into the service, my spiritual master walks up and says, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm folding boxes. He said, why are you doing this? I said, well, it needed to be done, and it was my service for a while, and I don't think I properly trained the person who I turned it over to, so I'm doing it myself. And he started to help me, and of course I couldn't stop him. He's bigger than me. I couldn't hold his hands down. So he started, and after just 5 or 10 minutes, even though it was hot out too, and he's quite a bit older than me, he also started to feel really happy. And I said, there's a real taste in this, Gurudev, isn't it? You know, and he said, yeah, because we're folding Krishna's boxes. We're serving Krishna. And I didn't even think about that until he said it. I just thought, oh, there's some Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We're doing a podcast.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Jai.
Papa, we're doing a podcast.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Jai Prabhu. So
Folding Krishna's boxes.
yes, it's Krishna's boxes, and I didn't even think about that. Because I'm a sense gratifier at my nature. Well, my conditioned nature. So I was just getting the sense gratification of, folding Krishna's boxes, and I didn't realize until my spiritual master pointed out, you're getting a taste from this because you're serving Krishna, and Krishna's in your heart, and he's giving you that taste.
Yeah.
And I didn't even accept it at first. I had to think about it for a while. And then later, I wrote him a text and I said, thank you for reminding me that really the real taste of anything, it's not in the action. It's not in the accomplishment. It's in the connection to Krishna.
Yeah.
If he's happy, we'll be happy. It's watering the root. So, so if you're not getting that taste, my opinion is it's very possible, perhaps not. Again, you got to consult Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. But it may be that Krishna wants you to change your service. He might have something else for you to do. And that's another wonderful thing that Srila Prabhupada gave us. He gave us a very variegated, eclectic system of prosecuting Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't like to cut vegetables or be in the kitchen, or you like it but you're just really bad at it, then go on the altar and offer some incense, or go out and distribute some books. Or, you know, one of my services also is, I'm a bit of a schmoozer. I don't know if you could tell. But, you know, one of the things that I do is I deal with members of the community that work in government and permits and things like that.
Oh, cool.
So I establish relationships with them and permits, you know, and rapport so that we can get permits.
You're probably really good at that.
By Krishna's mercy, I've gotten some
Nice.
skill at this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I used to chair the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee on in the town of Hillsborough.
Oh, nice.
So I've made these relationships, and I've tried my best to engage these relationships to help Krishna's temple, which in turn helps the public. We have such a great reputation in the Triangle area right now. You know, when we first came in 1982, you know, the neighborhood kids would come around with baseball bats and knock down our mailbox every other week.
Wow.
So thought of us as devil worshippers. Now you can go pretty much anywhere in Chapel Hill, Durham, Raleigh, wherever, and the vast majority of people, but they, oh yeah, those Hare Krishnas, they're so nice.
Really?
Yeah, they love us there. And that's all due to my spiritual master. He's very, very on that point of, you know, friend making before, friend raising before fundraising.
Yes. Such a great point.
And because people can engage at so many different levels, so many different tiers. And that's what we're really here to do. We're here to engage them. Not for our own notch in our belt. Not that, oh, I made so many devotees, or I distributed so many books, or I got so many people to chant Hare Krishna even. But, you know, I gave people an opportunity to connect with Krishna in such a way so that they can become happy. Srila Prabhupada's mission was to make us happy.
Yeah.
Because Lord Chaitanya is the Yuga avatar, and his mission is to come bring happiness to those of us that had no chance. You know, Prabhupada described the material world as Krishna's lavatory, right? So in such a yuga, you go into the lavatory and you have an opportunity to make yourself clean. You can be at the vanity, wash your face, brush your teeth, whatever. It's not so bad.
Yeah.
And then it's Treta Yuga, and you got to get in the shower. There's some dirt coming, and you know, it takes a little scrubbing, a little work. But then Dwapara Yuga comes, and the demons come to try to take over the earth. So it's like the toilet, where you're really dealing with some nasty substances. But in Kali Yuga, we're in the septic tank. You're not getting out of the septic tank until somebody comes to pump you out. And that's Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya really came completely, I mean, Krishna has many qualities we read about in the Nectar of Devotion. One of those is humility. Can you imagine? The Supreme Personality of Godhead is humble. Or at least he has that quality. Sometimes he's haughty. But he's actually humble. And Lord Chaitanya, he exhibited this quality to pump us out of the septic tank of Kali Yuga.
Yeah.
So how can we not have gratitude?
Definitely. The happiness thing, the happiness point is still really interesting to me. But we see that sometimes devotees leave Krishna consciousness and because they were putting on some kind of front when they were devotees, and then when they have left, they are able to kind of like shed those things and be themselves, so to say.
Sure.
And they feel like more happy from being themselves. So how would you say devotees can be more themselves while being
devotees.
I think we touched on it earlier when you said, should we find joy in our career?
Yeah.
And I was making the point that you can find joy even in those things that are a bit of a slag if you look hard enough and you try to dovetail those things. It goes the same with just serving in a temple or doing your service, whatever it may be. If you're not finding joy in it, you're doing the wrong service. I think this is.
I mean more generally, just in general, like even with social interactions or the principles or japa or like things that are everyone's meant to do, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, everyone is meant to chant japa, follow the 4 regulative principles. Well, actually, no, not everyone. If you're initiated,
Right.
but that's another thing. People think about. We used to have this term fringies. Do you still use that sometimes? Or
Yeah,
you remember when they did?
Oh yeah, fringies. Yeah.
You know, I always hated that. You know, it's like if someone just has respect
Yeah.
for the process of Krishna consciousness and the holy name of Krishna, we're actually meant to offer obeisances to them, at least in our mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so what to speak of someone who comes and, you know, attends a feast? You know, so I remember, you know, as a young, immature bhakta, and people would come just to have prasadam. They would never listen to class. They wouldn't listen to kirtan. They didn't have anything nice to say. They would just come for prasadam. And I used to resent it. I used to think, oh, this rascal.
Yeah.
But I'm the rascal. Because they came for prasadam. I have relatives that will not taste prasadam. They're not even Muslim. You know? They won't even taste prasadam. They don't even
They just
have that.
actively don't want to take prasadam.
That, or when they taste it, they're repulsed by that spice palette.
Okay.
You know, we have the American spice palette, the Asian spice palette, the Indian spice palette, but there's also a prasadam spice palette. You know, that spice palette is dominated by the saliva of Krishna, Radharani and Krishna.
Right.
So that spice palette cannot be tasted and appreciated by the envious. You know, so if someone appreciates any aspect, and by the way, those individuals in my family that can't even taste prasadam, there are other ways that they've tasted Krishna consciousness that gave them joy, and that's their connection. So just because someone doesn't find prasadam tasty, or they can't chant japa, or they can't chant in kirtan, or they can't cook in the kitchen or whatever, Prabhupada is so kind that he gave us a plethora of ways to connect. And if you just connect one way,
Yeah.
as the Christians say, you're saved.
Yes.
So I think this is really important for preaching. And first of all, I mean, it's a natural outflow of listening. Is that if you're listening to someone, if you bring someone based on what they tell you, then you'll also know how to engage them. If you bring them out of a sense of desperation, either your desperation to bring more bodies into the temple to cut vegetables, or their desperation to have some place to live because they happen to be homeless otherwise, you're going to run into problems. First of all, sit down, hear what they really truly need. Sometimes they're not ready to engage in as fully as you think that they are.
Yeah.
Especially today, mental health is a thing. Yeah. And it's getting worse and worse every day. So some people, before they come to eat, sometimes even before they come to a Sunday feast, they need therapy. What to speak of living in a temple. So we should listen to people. And when we hear what people say, believe them, take it to heart, and really apply our brains and our intelligence, like Srila Prabhupada told Giriraj Maharaj, how to help them. Prabhupada said we should rack our brains figuring out how to bring the holy name to people. Seems like a no-brainer, right? You just tell them chant Hare Krishna. If they chant Hare Krishna, problem solved. It's not like that. Some people can't directly chant. You know, Valmiki, the writer of the Ramayana, he couldn't even chant Rama. So Narada Muni told him, chant Mara, death. You're a hunter, so chant death.
Yeah.
Mara, 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 Ram, 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 Ram. You know the story, yes?
Yes, I love it. Love that story.
So it's necessary sometimes to give people an opportunity that they don't know. Now, that's not to say that we should lean our whole weight on Agyata Sukriti. There's actually plenty of people out there who are ready for direct devotional service.
Yeah.
But you'll never know unless you listen. So it's really about investment. So if you invest your time in helping other living entities, other parts and parcels of Krishna, Krishna will invest his time in you. And part of that time that he invests is giving you signs that, okay, this service that I've been doing, either my job or cooking in the kitchen or being on the altar all the time or going out and distributing books, it's not giving me the same taste as before.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Devotees are living beings, dynamic living beings that have different chapters of their lives. You were asking me before about when I was an actor, and I was saying, I'm really glad I did it, and I'm really glad it's over, because that was a chapter that
Yeah.
I had to live and write, and I've closed that chapter. I'm on to the next chapter.
Yeah.
So even if you're doing ecstatic service, if it's not ecstatic for you, Srila Prabhupada has options. He's not a slave driver. He came to make you happy, not to make himself happy by exploiting you. And I dare say that those people that go away from Krishna consciousness because they were unhappy in Krishna consciousness and they became happier, they didn't really apply themselves to the process the way that Srila Prabhupada brought it to us. Now, again, a team sport, they're not entirely to blame. Perhaps those people that presented Krishna consciousness to them could have done a better job.
Totally. I said that too. Yeah, the same thing.
But again, what's to lament? What's lamenting going to get us?
Yeah.
The main thing is, if they go away from Krishna consciousness, if they're honest, they also should see that the ISKCON of today is not the ISKCON of 5 years ago. And the ISKCON of 5 years ago is not the ISKCON of 10 years ago. So it's a growing, living group of growing, living individuals that grow up and mature. And, they may not have been happy doing whatever they thought they were obligated to do, but they can still engage in some way or other. And the only reason we still meet them to know that they're unhappy is because they reveal themselves as having been a former devotee because they have some attachment.
Yeah.
Like I said, the poison, once it's entered, it has to act.
Yeah.
So I hope I'm not dragging too much time here. Wow. It's already been an hour and a half.
It has. Yeah. I love it. Prabhu. Great conversation.
Thank you.
What services make you personally excited?
Well, just the one-on-one heart connection with another devotee. And again, just maturing from what I used to be, there's no such thing as a non-devotee. There's just advanced devotees, less advanced devotees, and perhaps as yet to be devotees. Lord Chaitanya came to save all of us.
Yeah.
Even that bug that I'm mad at, who flew in my window unbidden, he's a devotee. It might be 700 lifetimes separating him from his pure devotional service, or 7 million. Doesn't matter. Lord Chaitanya came to save him too. So, I'm sure I seem like I'm preaching or, trying to tell, but I'm preaching in my own mind. These are things that I need to remind myself constantly. I would love to say that everything I'm talking about, I live 24/7. It's simply not true.
Yeah.
But again, that's not anything to lament, because I might be 16% there today. And tomorrow, perhaps I'll be 16.000001% there. And the following day, maybe I'll go down to 14.2%. But to say it the third time, to drive the point home, the poison is entered. Kicking and screaming, I'm still going to get dragged back to Godhead. So I try to act on the gratitude that I occasionally feel
Yeah.
by just throwing my body, my words, and when I can, my heart into devotional service.
Beautiful.
And if I throw my body and my words at something and I do it repeatedly, my heart is not in it, then I take that as Krishna's sign that, okay, let's try one of the other processes out of the myriad of processes that Srila Prabhupada has given us.
Yeah. So besides one-to-one connection,
Oh,
anything
sorry.
else? That's okay.
Besides one-to-one connection. I lately I've been fortunate to have some attachment for my japa.
Nice.
And having some private time with Krishna alone has been very enlivening. Also, I think it's kind of along the same theme. You know, it's a one-on-one connection. One-on-one connecting with Krishna, one-on-one connecting with other devotees, and one-on-one connecting with Srila Prabhupada by reading many of his pastimes.
Yep.
I'm so fortunate that I get regular emails, texts. I mean, sometimes it gets so much that it piles up in my inbox. But that just means that I have an excuse to say, I can't do anything now, Prabhu. I have to read for an hour. And
Wow.
I can just read, you know, memories of Srila Prabhupada from his disciples and followers, or I can read a conversation that Srila Prabhupada had in a room or while walking, or I'll read a transcription of a lecture, or I might get really enthusiastic and see that there's an audio, and I'll listen to Srila Prabhupada give the lecture in
Yeah.
audio. And then also I connect to Srila Prabhupada through his disciples. I'm so fortunate that my spiritual master has never been overly possessive of me or any of his disciples. And he gives everyone an opportunity to take inspiration from his god brothers and god sisters,
Yeah.
you know, within reason.
Sure.
Not that I just run here and there looking for the nectar.
Right.
I'm not all about that either. Some of us are not enough afraid of Maya. But there's so many. I mean, we're surrounded. You've had so many of them on your show. Mahatma Prabhu, I
Yes.
just watched that
Yeah.
episode recently. Your father-in-law is just a brilliant. So I mean, the book that he wrote on the spiritual master and disciple, absolute genius.
Great book. Yeah.
I know Kalakanta Prabhu is going to be. You're going to
Yeah. In a
release that one soon.
few weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
Really looking forward to that.
Oh, it was a great conversation.
I mean, Madan Gopal Prabhu, who just took up the service of spiritual master.
Yeah.
I mean, when I heard, I called him with tears in my eyes. I said, "My condolences. You have to do this." I mean, but it's like we were talking about parenthood, right?
Yeah.
It's so hard. It's such a heavy responsibility.
Yeah.
But if there's anyone in our generation that I've met who is up to the task and who will make a very fortunate soul out of anyone who takes shelter of him, it's His Grace Madan Gopal Prabhu.
For sure. Agreed.
Such a wonderful devotee.
Yes.
So, where was I going with this?
It was related to the things that you're inspired to do.
Oh, yes. So connecting with these devotees.
Yes.
So sometimes I listen to Srila Prabhupada, but also I listen to these devotees lectures. And
Yes.
God bless Maya Donova. You know, this technology that we have YouTube and you know, we have this podcast. We have all these opportunities to just hear from the great souls all the time.
Yeah.
I love listening to classes by Vaisheshika Prabhu. His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu is just really brilliant.
Yeah.
And Radhanath Maharaj, your spiritual master.
Yes. Yes.
So His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, I love listening to his classes, but sometimes I just can't, because when I do, I break down. I'm not an emotional person. I'm kind of a guy's guy, kind of a guy. I don't like to cry. So when I listen to your spiritual master, it's hard for me. I have to like struggle through and not like fall on the floor. It's just brilliant. Can I tell one story of how I first met your spiritual master?
Oh, please. Yeah.
Many years ago, I was in New Vrindavan. I went to visit New Vrindavan probably 1998, 99, something like that.
Nice.
And I was staying in one of the rooms, you know, where the hallway is next to the temple room.
Yes.
And the rooms on the other side of the hallway.
Yes.
So I was in one of those rooms. I believe I was with His Grace Keshava Prabhu, Keshava Best, Mother Urmila's youngest son.
Yes.
So we had gone up to New Vrindavan to visit, and we were unpacking, and I saw this saffron figure coming with an entourage, and I thought, oh, sannyasi, I don't want to fast today. Hit the deck.
Yeah.
So I offered obeisances, not knowing who it was, or and when I got up from offering obeisances, that saffron-clad figure was on the ground with his head touching the ground, offering obeisances back to me and Keshava Prabhu. And I thought, wow, what's this? Because I'd met a few sannyasis by then, and that was the first time I had it. And when I got up, he was just all smiles,
Yeah.
just so gleamingly happy.
Yeah.
Talk about first duty is to be happy. Your spiritual master personifies that. So he was just so happy, and he's like, I thank you for coming to New Vrindavan. Is there any way I can serve you
Wow.
while you're here? And I said, Maharaj, I'm Gopal Das. Is there any way I can serve you? He said, well, my name is Radhanath Swami, who, by the way, in the 90s, we didn't hear that much about His Holiness Radhanath.
Oh, yeah. He was unknown.
Yeah, I mean,
Virtually.
somewhat.
Somewhat,
And
yeah.
he had pretty much just come back
Yes.
from having really established his yatra in Mumbai
Yes.
after, keeping his distance from many of the things that he was very smart to keep his distance from. But he was back and humble as ever. And I was just completely overwhelmed by his service attitude. It was not rote. It was not obligatory. He really meant it. And I've met him a few times since, and it's the same.
Yeah.
And he embraced me. And I mean, since then, I'm in love with Radhanath Maharaj, I could tell a few other stories of my interactions with him, but I don't want to go over time.
Yeah. Please, one more. It's very nectarian for me.
Okay. Well, I was in Sridham Mayapur one year, and my wife's nephew, my wife's sister's son, had just gotten married. And he was touring with his new wife, and they decided that part of the tour would be to come to Sridham Mayapur. And when we knew they were coming, we arranged for a party for them. So we had just had a party. We just enjoyed like anything. They're devotees, but like Prabhupada's wife type of devotees.
That's wife type devote. I haven't heard that before. That's pretty good.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So wonderful, wonderful souls. I love them to death. They're some of my favorite people in the world, and eventually they'll start to get more serious. That I'm sure.
Yeah.
But they're young, just got married, and interested in enjoying, and we enjoyed. We had cupcakes and samosas and paneer sabjis, and
Nice.
we enjoyed. So we're coming from this big enjoyment situation. We across Mayapur campus, and we were walking behind the long building, between the long building and the Gutta building, and Radhanath Maharaj, without any entourage. This was maybe 2014, 15. And he had already become really big by this time.
Of course,
and, always had an entourage, but no entourage. Just him walking alone.
Wow.
In that big open parking lot area, And he saw me, and he remembered me. We haven't met that many times that he should remember someone like me.
Yeah.
But he did. And he had me introduce my nephew to him. And he said, so is Gopal showing you around? Is there anything I can do for you? And you're just like so humble, so humble. And then he grabbed my shoulder and just yanked me towards him and embraced me again. Oh, by the way, can I tell a third story?
Please.
So in between this time, when I was in Los Angeles studying to be an actor and be in Hollywood, there was one time my Guru Maharaj had traveled through Los Angeles to Fiji because that's part of his zone.
Right.
Since His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj has left, he asked my spiritual master to take that service.
Yeah.
So he was stopped in Los Angeles, and I picked him up from the airport. He had a layover, so I took him to the temple and got him shoes, a few things. And he said, look, Radhanath Maharaj is going to be coming in a few days. I need you to give him a message for me. I said, okay. And he told me the message. I don't remember what it was now.
Like he just verbally told you.
Yeah, he just verbally said, give him this message. I said, okay. So I found out from Swavasrama when he was coming, and I made the arrangement that I would come. And when I came there, His Holiness, your spiritual master, Radhanath Maharaj, was across the street, across Watsika from the temple, in one of the devotee apartments.
Yeah.
And there was a sliding glass door. So there were so many devotees in there. You know how crowded it gets sometimes when he gives the darshans.
Yeah.
So it was just completely crowded. And I went in the sliding glass door and I kind of snuck in, not wanting to make a scene. So I sort of, snuck in, stayed at the wall. But he saw me. And he said, "Oh, Gopal." And then, he said, "Come here." And he's talking to somebody else. He interrupted the conversation just to greet me, embarrass him, beat red. And so I go, to where he is. And he said, "Sit down." I said, "I can't sit in the same seat." And he's like, "Nah." Grabbed me by the wrist hard, and he pulled me down onto the seat. So I'm sitting right next to him, surrounded by his godbrothers, who are all senior to me by a lot of years.
Wow.
And he just embraced me again.
Amazing.
And he said, "What can I do for you?" I said, "I'm sorry to disturb, Maharaj, but I have a message from my spiritual master, Srila Bhira Krishna Swami, that I needed to give you." And his eyes became very wide. And his smile became very wide also. And he embraced me a second time. And he said, "Thank you."
Wow.
Super sincerely, "Thank you. Thank you for bringing me a message from my very dear godbrother."
Wow.
So, anyway,
So
that's your spiritual master.
amazing. Just to see the interactions of these senior Vaishnavas is so heart touching, and it's also it's a really tall order for us, I feel.
It is, but it's a tall order for them too, because they feel the weight of the responsibility to display that for us,
Yeah.
and it's important. Can I tell you one more story?
Please.
It actually doesn't have to do directly with His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, but His Holiness Srila Sridhar Swami from Mumbai, who's since left us also.
The Jolly Swami.
The Jolly Swami, yes. I was very fortunate that in the early 90s, I took a class in Gita Nagari that he gave. And so I knew him. And I was in Sridham Mayapur with my Gurudev and a few other disciples, maybe in 96, 98 maybe 94. Anyway, so Gurudev took myself and godbrothers and godsisters, well, godbrothers at that point, to the Ganga to take a bath.
Yeah.
And he told us, "Okay, it's time for Gayatri. I'm going to go in to the Ganga and chant my Gayatri. You protect me. If anyone comes up and tries to harass me or offer obeisances or whatever, you keep them away."
Yeah.
So that was me and the others. Well, Srila Sridhar Maharaj knew me. So about halfway through my Guru Maharaj's Gayatri, I feel a tap on the shoulder. And I turn around and it's Jolly Swami, and he goes,
Uh-oh.
exactly. So he gets in to the river right next to my spiritual master and starts to splash him,
Oh my God.
disrupting his Gayatri. Of course, my Guru Maharaj is trying to be serious. He's, of course, chuckling, but he's trying to be serious, completing his Gayatri. And Sridhar Maharaj is just being mischievous.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, myself and my godbrothers are just laughing and mixed feelings. We're like, "Oh my God, we're committing
Horrified.
offense." Horrified, but mortified, but also really enjoying it. And just the whole scene was just hilarious. Of course, when my spiritual master finished Gayatri and he unwrapped his finger and went up like this, immediately, very dramatically, Srila Sridhar Maharaj grabs his own Brahmin thread and wraps it and starts to chant Gayatri very seriously. Like that. And when he's done, when my spiritual master is done offering obeisances, he starts yelling, not at Sridhar Maharaj, and just like into the air, "What is this? Disturbing someone when they're trying to chant Gayatri. This is nonsense. This is not the process." Of course, it's all just a display of brotherhood
Yes.
between these great souls
Yeah.
that I will never forget to this day.
Amazing.
And so, I have many godbrothers and godsisters, and we all have very disparate personalities. I love them all very deeply with my whole heart and would dive into a hail of bullets for any of them. But some of them I love more fully from a distance,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that lesson that I got from watching the interaction between these two great souls who are followers of Srila Prabhupada has really helped me cultivate that love for my God family.
Yeah.
Not only my own God brothers and God sisters, but my God cousins, God aunts, God nephews, God uncles, everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually do have God nieces and nephews now because Madan Gopal Prabhu is a God cousin and he's got disciples.
That's right.
And, there's others. Even Kadamba Kanana Maharaj.
Right.
Kadamba Kanana Maharaj is my God cousin.
Yes.
And so his disciples are my God nieces and nephews.
Right.
And they're all much more advanced than I am. But I just live with that. But I love them. I'm not only respectful towards them, but also affectionate. It's my responsibility to be better than I am in their presence.
Amazing. Well, Gopal Prabhu, it's really fantastic speaking with you and getting to know you better, and your enthusiasm, your positivity, your example of gratefulness and everything is really inspiring to me. So thank you for affecting me in that way.
Thank you, Prabhu. I can't thank you enough, actually, for giving me this opportunity to reach so many devotees. And I just, one last thing.
Please.
Many people who are watching this know that I'm much shorter than the average bear. If you want to know, I'm 4'6", and I don't have really important service around the movement. I'm not a GBC. I'm not a guru, not aspiring to be a guru, no kind of kirtanir or whatever. I just fold Krishna's boxes. I get Krishna's boga for Nugaloka. I try to help out with permits here and there, help devotees here and there. I'm a little devotee. Krishna gave me this body to remind me of that every day. But I am fulfilling Srila Prabhupada's mission because Srila Prabhupada's mission is to make others happy. I'm others, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
So just being the result of Srila Prabhupada's mission is a great service.
Yes.
So if you want to do the first thing that is your duty in Krishna consciousness, be happy.
Yeah.
And beg, borrow, or steal, but find that happiness somewhere within Srila Prabhupada's process. You don't have to be a big devotee.
I love that. Yeah, I always think about like Srila Prabhupada came to America to preach to me, not for just me. Of course, it's important that I preach to others and reach others in Krishna consciousness, but he came for me, and I hear that same message in what you're saying.
Absolutely. I mean, in my case, he came for my cat. And he trained my cat to bring me. Right. So nobody is too small to matter.
Yes. Great. Thank you so much, Prabhu, again.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
As always, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you want to get in touch with Gopal Prabhu, I'll put his different links to get in contact with him in the description, whether it's his site, email, or social media. But thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a very good night. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Krishna